Yo, 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 what it do, what it do. We are back for another episode of the Out the Box Show. I am your host, Donald McKinney, and once again, I have got some heat for y'all today. So lock in, listen close, get your notepad and your pencils out because it is getting ready to be an amazing, amazing show. I just want to say happy Friday to all TGIF, especially to you hardworking people out there grinding, getting that payola paper. It's the weekend, so if you off on weekends, hey, it's time to relax, okay? But with all that being said, do me a favor, like, subscribe, and share if you're rocking with the content. And as usual, let's go in. All right. Now, on today's show, we're going to be talking about Aryanism and what that means to the American going to Africa. I don't know if you've ever heard about or heard this theory of the out of America theory. I know you've heard of the out of Africa theory where everybody comes from Africa, but there's also a theory that everybody comes from America. So we're going to be talking about that today. Specifically, black people, melanated people being the mother race and the father race of the planet. All right, the next subject we're going to be talking about is the black Irish people of Ireland. I didn't know this until recently, but Irish people, well, I knew about it for a few years now just through my research, but Irish people originally being swarthy, dark skinned people. We're going to talk about that. And then to put a little bit of context of that, we're going to actually talk about the Gaelic and Hebrew alphabets and dialect linguistics and the similarities with those. And finally, are Negro Indians and African Americans the same people? Right? So I'm going to be talking about that and specifically giving you about what it means for called typonymic surname and why I think they classified melanated people in America, dark skinned people in America, as African American. Okay, so first things first, Aryanism. What is Aryanism? You know what I'm saying? And what is the Aryan heresy, right? And what does that mean for melanated people of color, right? So in Aryanism, from my understanding, dark skinned people, black people, Negro people, we were the first Aryan. I mean, I know you've heard about the Aryan Nation, right? With the Nazis, and they kind of co opted that term and started using that term. But the origins of that were black people who, or dark skinned people who didn't believe in mixing their genes with the newly found Caucasoid or lighter skinned races. It was actually illegal for you to mix yourself with the what is called, from my understanding, the genetically modified new race of people back in the day. And I'm talking about, a few thousand years ago. And once again, it's not about hate. It's not about being racist, towards lighter skinned people. It's not even about that. It's about being able to tell the truth. So, family, research what Arianism is, and specifically the Aryan heresy, Arian, Aryan heresy, and where Arianism, the Aryan nation, white power, you know what I'm saying, and the old swastika sign they try to use and stuff like that. Well, those people actually co-opted their history and story from, and their ideology from black people. Black people didn't believe in actually mixing their genes with Caucasian people from thousands of years ago. And specifically, the black people, and this comes from America. This ideology of Aryanism comes from America, and specifically those blacks that participated in this were kicked out of America. And there's history of this going back to the first century and before, where there was war and Aryan was left and specifically put across the burning sands, but specifically the Aryan heresy, which started in about the third or fourth century, was a Christian theological stance that said Jesus Christ was a creation of God and a subordinate to God the Father. Now, what that means to me is that if you're a subordinate to somebody that's over you, God being your creator, I want you to put that in context and understand about if black people, melanated people, we are the mother and father race and all other races come from us. It makes sense that when the Johnny come lately or the new people were created, there were some melanated people that would go against that. And there was laws and religions that were created, specifically the certain aspects and sects of the Christian religion were created based off of Arianism. So the Nazis kind of took that history, and they've been and not just, well, Nazis, but specifically the Khazarians, your Mongoloid species, your Caucasians, Asian, Caucasian, very similar, right? Yeah, they took that term and they co-opted it, and later in history, they tried to make it seem like they were the dominant race. Now, the reason why they done this is because, once again, in my previous episodes that you've seen, they didn't want to, in the White Declaration of Independence that I talked to you about before, if you remember that episode, they went back and they declared that they didn't want to be slaves to black people. So what does that mean to be a slave to a black person? What does that mean? And I always, it was like, well, what are they talking about? Like, why do they feel like they are slaves? Like, but when you do the research through the Slavic slave trade, through the Barbary slave trade, Caucasian people were slaves to melanated people. And they didn't have rights. I mean, even going back to the Magna Carta, white people couldn't own land unless you were married to a person of royal blood, and black blood was considered royal blood. I mean, Caucasian people at one time were described as being wild men. Wild men, like, they were wild people. If you look up the term, what is a troglodyte nigger? The terms troglodyte nigger literally are, and Candias, the word Candias, troglodyte nigger, these were cave dwelling people. These were where Caucasian people come from. And I'm not just making this stuff up. You can go research everything that I'm saying when it comes to cavemen and why Caucasian people call themselves troglodytes, right? I mean, they even had the Flintstones. I mean, I can't make this stuff up. You can't make this stuff up. But anywho, moving forward, go research the Magna Carta, the forest laws or charters of the forest, when it specifically talks about how the wild man couldn't even own certain weapons and so on and so forth like that. So when you're talking about Arianism and the understandings of the Christian religion, specifically from a Caucasian standpoint, it gets very, very, very interesting. I would like for you, family, to do your own diligent research and make your own thoughts about the situation, on that topic specifically. So moving forward, there's a video going around online of a melanated brother from Ireland who grew up in America, and this brother is going in on African people. He's talking about, hey, like, Africans, stop claiming, that everybody else's culture and fully understand the truth. And I agree 200%. I mean, when you start doing your research and understanding that what is called the black nobility. And this brother does a great job of talking about his own personal heritage and where he comes from, specifically in the video. So I encourage you, please go watch that video, specifically about that black Irishman and, how he talks about how his family is from America. His heritage is from America, the American Indian, and the connection with the Irish people in Europe and the original Irish people in Europe being from America. Now, from my understanding, this is all truth. This has all been documented through genealogy and going back thousands and thousands of years, So, definitely, go give that video a shout out. Go look at that video, because he really goes in, and I concur. You go watch that video talking about the Black Irish people and the history of how Irish people have all, I mean, dark skinned people and Irish people have always been on that landmass where they come from, coming from America, and the connections between the two. It's amazing, amazing history that really was kept from us. And moving on forward, you can even, and it can be proven specifically with, you know, the linguistics. I mean, Irish people, they speak Gaelic. Their original language was Gaelic or Irish Gaelic or Scottish Gaelic, right? Well, if you look at Gaelic and you look at, you know what I'm saying, the ancient language of excuse me, ancient Irish languages and some and cymatics, I mean, literally, you look at the alphabet of these people's word, and it's very, very, very similar to Hebrew. I mean, a lot of the words are similar. And have the same meaning. That's what was so intriguing to me, because I was like, wow, like, this is amazing that this history has been hidden from people around the world, not just black people in America, but the world. The connection between America and Europe, and how melanated people don't know who they are, or they claim we don't know who we are. Well, there's people out there that never lost their history and genealogy, and they know exactly where they come from, and they look like dark skinned people like me. So definitely going out and understanding the connection between Hebrew and Gaelic people, and I mean, and Gaelic language, and the similarities in the words and stuff like that is very, 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 very important. I mean, when you talk about black people being kicked out of America for sleeping outside of their race, you know, in the Ten Commandments, they say one of the commandments are, thou shalt not commit adultery. Well, from my understanding, adultery isn't having multiple wives. Solomon had multiple wives. David had multiple wives. Numerous kings in the past had multiple wives, right? But when you commit adultery, from my understanding, it's to sleep outside of your race. So if there were, and when you look at the Aryan heresy, and you look at these different laws that all lead back to what language people were speaking, where they come from, and so on and so forth, a lot of the ideology, specifically the Greek ideology, if you've ever heard of what is called the burning sands, right? The burning sands comes from talking about those who crossed the desert, right? Those who crossed the desert, the Red Sea. Even in the Bible, if you're in Christianity, you have the story of Pharaoh letting his people go, and specifically the Exodus out of Egypt, where they crossed the Red Sea, and the Israelites wandered the wild for 40 years before they found the promised land, so to say, right? Well, who was those Israelites, and where did they go? Who was those Israelites, and where did they go? And why is it that Africans and Americans specifically have a lot of connections when it comes to language, when it comes to culture? They look similar, but they're not the same exactly, but then some are looking the same exactly. I know some African people, you can't tell the difference between looking, you know what I'm saying? I know African people, they don't really grow as much hair as American blacks, American indigenous people. American indigenous people, we grow our hair out a lot more. I know a lot of African people that don't grow beards, and they can't even grow an afro. So that would be the difference, I would say, is from the hair and the way that we grow hair and stuff like that. But skin tone wise, you've got indigenous black Americans just as dark as African, people and stuff like that. So moving along, wrapping things up, talking about the final subject of, are Negro Indians and African American the same people, right? Well, if you look at it from the standpoint of linguistics, and if you're a Christian person and you understand that in the Bible it talks about the, you know, exodus of melanated people, and then you look at Aryanism and the history of Aryanism and you connect those two together, it is a lot of evidence to say that something happened in America thousands of years ago where there was an exodus of people that were pushed out of America because of their beliefs and the way that they carried themselves. So, America being the place that has the oldest pyramids, the most pyramids, the most agriculturally diverse, the biggest rainforest, the most habitable places to live, the most freshwater lakes, and the most freshwater lakes are in America. If you didn't know that. So, yes, Negro Indians, dark skinned Indians, indigenous people, African Americans, yes, they are the same people. But I do want to put this last little tidbit in your ear. Typonymic surname. Toponymic. Typonymic surnames. And what that means is where a person or thing comes from. That's why like my name is Donald McKinney. I am Donald. My first name is Donald, and I come from a McKinney, right? So when you look at a typonymic surname, specifically the words African American, is it a coincidence that they said that Africans that come from America? I'm just saying, you know what I'm saying? If the shoe fits, wear it, you know, and they might not want to actually put that out there because I know a lot of times this is secret society knowledge and stuff that they just simply don't want people knowing because they want to be able to control you and control the narrative and specifically just keep you working as a slave because he who borrows is slave to the lender. And I don't know about you, but most people that I know live paycheck to paycheck. Most people that I know, they don't have the finances to be able to be considered rich and so on and so forth. And that's done by design and on purpose. If you knew better, you would do better, right? So that goes into the Negro Law of South Carolina, specifically going back to the 16 and 1700s, where it was illegal for Negro people to read. It was illegal to teach people how to read. And for hundreds of years, you did not have the right to read. You did not have the right to learn. You did not right to know this. It had to be passed down orally. And that's why if you go to your great grandmothers and your great grandfathers, they'll tell you where you come from. They'll tell you the history, but then you go to a school and an organization to try to tell you that you're not what they say you are. Or maybe it's just a scientific understanding on who you are. And if you look a little bit deeper and dive a little bit deeper in there, specifically typonymic surnames, it kind of tells on itself. So I don't know. You all be the judge. And let me know in the comments how you feel. You know, with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and wrap the show up there. You know, once again, my name is Donald McKinney. This has been another great episode of Out the Box Show. Happiest Friday to all. And till the next time we meet, love, peace, and hair grease. We out here.